guys, this is just a footnote for this podcast episode. When I keep talking about books and leveling up in your life, I'm actually talking about not reading it, but listening to it, because I don't really have the time, and I'm sure that you don't either, to read. But I will still buy the physical book, listen to the audio, take screenshots with my phone so I can go back to that book later and underline the most impactful parts to me. Then when I'm done listening to that book, I will leave that physical book on my work table that I do my comedy writing, so it can always be a reminder of my lessons learned. And if I want to refresh, I can just fan through it. It's easier to fan through a book than an audio, just for context. Enjoy. One of my biggest defects, but I know what it is, so I've actually resolved that defect, is believing that for some reason I can do everything myself. And I'm smart enough and I have enough wisdom to be able to know that's not true. But for some reason, my first impression is always that I can do everything without any help. But the reality is that success is not a vacuum. Meaning, in this podcast, what I want to do is I was going to talk about all of the different, and it'll be very brief, ways and individuals that have helped me the most. And the most that have helped me are those individuals that have already made it in life, that are successful and experts in their own avenue. And I learned from these people directly through their words, famous celebrities and all sorts of other individuals, in the form of books. So I'm going to tell you the titles of these books and what the purpose of reading these books are, because as I continue to say and continuously believe in, anything that you say out loud, which you don't ever do unless you talk to yourself, I'm talking for a podcast, but regardless, you're making an actual imprint of that memory. So this would be a refresher for myself and anyone listening. This is going to take you to that next level. Okay. So just as an example of how success is not a vacuum, if you look at a successful comedian, athlete, etc., they've had coaches, they've had mentors, they've had life lessons. You got to learn how to stay away from the bad crowds. You got to maybe have a manager. You got to have somebody do your marketing. You may not be the best athlete, but you can be making a lot more money than somebody else because you're great at marketing or Instagram, whatever, fill in the blank, right? And even when it comes to colleges want a winning team. But if they know a guy is the number 2, okay, and he has a lot of people and guys and girls or whatever that follow him on Instagram, for example, right? And maybe he's less expensive, or maybe he might even be more expensive to buy if it was professional, or you'd want him to go to that school. They're going to choose that guy over someone who's a better talent with less of a following, because it comes down to selling tickets. So without further ado, here is a list and a brief synopsis of a brief summary of who and why. So my problems and my answers are different than other people, but if you deal with procrastination, you need to read The War of Art, because it looks at procrastination as far as something that you can fight and you can win on a daily basis. After you level up and you've read that book and you've adopted it, you understand the principles and the concepts. Okay, after The War of Art, which was written by Stephen Pressfield, you want to read his next book. All right, and it's called Turning Pro. Okay, it means what you do when you no longer procrastinate and you want to not just be consistent, but start making money at it. You want to start being better at that activity. And even if you're not getting paid, you want to be a professional with your time management, your organization, and everything else like that. Now, he has a few other books which I think are good, but they're a little bit more specific. And it's kind of like the second degree of The War of Art. And I actually have it right here. I keep these books out on my table that I do all of my comedy writing, because they're just reminders. They're constant reminders to me. So after I'm done reading something, and by the way, I get the audio version. I save reading, but a lot of these I will read and I'll take physical notes, but I'll first listen to it in the audio, and then I'll just like kind of bookmark it and I'll go back and like underline it. But anyway, it's called Put Your Ass Where Your Heart Wants to Be. And that's right by my, it's on my table, right by the chair. So where I see it again, that's defeating procrastination, because I know by seeing that I need to be in this chair, because when greatness arrives and it comes in my mind and I'm ready to write down an idea, I'm where I need to be and not doing something else somewhere else. And that's, again, it kind of is like a full circle as far as how the war of art begins, because the first however many pages he talks about procrastination and getting his morning coffee and doing all this other stuff. And he knows all he has to do is just sit down. But it's been like he goes through this entire list and you realize he's not just procrastinating, he's finding things to do, and he self-admits it. And the ironic part is, by not reading The War of Art, you are procrastinating. So it's really interesting not reading that book if you actually do buy it. Because, yeah, it's a game changer. I actually heard about that book from Joe Rogan. He kept giving copies of it. He really believes that book, and it helped him exponentially. So I looked into it, and it did the exact thing for me as well. So another thing is, I had the honor and pleasure of doing a podcast with these two really, really amazing guys, Hoffa and David. The podcast is called H&D Comedy Podcast. It's a rough hat production, as they call it. And it actually comes out today, November the 10th. But one of the things after the podcast, they mentioned to me that they wanted to work on their brand. So that being mentioned, there is a great book, okay, for building your brand, because you have to understand, if you're a commercial product, if you're a car company, if you're an advertising agency, if you're a comedian, you have to the biggest question to ask yourself is why. If you want to be a successful podcaster, not why do you want to do that, but why should they listen to you? Why should they listen to my jokes? What are you offering that everyone else that has a podcast is not offering? And you can learn that very simply and very easily by getting a book from Donald Miller called Building a Story Brand. And essentially, whether you're a podcaster or an influencer or a comedian, for every joke, for your whole product line, for every car commercial, okay? If you're a coach and it's your teaching style, if you're a singer, it could be not just your image altogether, but could also be a song that you write individually. Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller is a game changer, because it will tell you, essentially, it will help you with the element of the story of what you're trying to have everybody see when they look at you, okay? And hopefully that's something that they want to be a part of as well. They want to be a part of that journey. I'm telling you, that is such a game changer. I told one guy about it, and he called me about it like every other day after like he read the next like 5, 10, 15, 20 pages. He'd be calling me up being like, this is so crazy. And it is. It's an amazing book. And I'm going to put all these books down in the comment section of my Instagram. If you check out my Instagram, and also for this one individually, I will put it on YouTube specifically. Now, earlier I said that success is not a vacuum, right? And that's true. You have to be your own marketing company. You have to be able, unless you have a team of individuals that work for you, okay, you have to be able to market yourself, okay? So, multi-billionaire, okay, enthusiast, entrepreneur, mentor, etc. This guy is the best of a group of best. He is just amazing, right? He has 2 books. He has many books, but 2 of them I thought were the biggest game changer. Both New York Times bestsellers. The first one is called Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone. Okay. And in that, he essentially talks about how everything in life is sales. And it is, realistically. Think about it like this. If I'm not getting booked for a comedy club, okay, I have to call a comedy club and tell them why. Again, building a story brand. But I have to, he essentially is telling you, if you're talking to a girl, if you want to be an athlete on a certain basketball team, okay, if you wanted to, whatever you're doing, you're constantly selling yourself. Everything is sales. And he's right. Right now, I'm trying to convince you why you should listen to this podcast. Right now, I'm convincing you why you should listen to my next minute, let alone my next second, right? Everything has to count. There cannot be fluff in between, all right? And sell or be sold pretty much means in every conversation, in every idea point that you are sharing, there's going to be one winner. So you're going to sell them on your idea. You're going to get that car sale. You're going to convince them that you should be on the team, that you should get the part in the acting role. Okay, that girl should go out with you. All right. And the line goes on and on and on and on, all walks of life. Why you should listen to this podcast, why you should hear me as a world-class comedian. Okay. As opposed to them, their idea winning essentially by saying, I'm not interested. It's your responsibility to sell them on you, on your idea, on your product, whatever it may be. And my product is myself in my life, in my example, in this instance, right? But it applies to you too. So that is sell or be sold. The second one, also by Grant Cardone, Game Changer. Okay. It's called 10X. And my personal opinion is you should buy his book, just called 10X. And it means to essentially take all of your principles and ideas and so forth and so on, multiply them by 10. Because if you think I want to be a little bit better, and let's just say 100 days, I love the 100-day interval mark. Okay, multiply your goal by 10. Okay, instead of being like, I want to lift 10 more pounds. Let's just say it was the gym, for example, where I wanted to make $100. Multiply your initial idea by 10. This way, there's a famous phrase, which is, and I'm paraphrasing, but if you aim for the moon and fall among the stars, you'll still be successful. So that pretty much means most individuals fail in life as far as the progress that they can make, okay, by not aiming high enough. So they essentially, they're looking at the next step to take. When Grant Cardone is essentially saying, if that was a staircase, look at the top of the stairs and see how many you can jump. See if you can take more than one step at a time. Okay. But your goal is to be to reach the entire top of the staircase. But don't focus on your steps. Focus on the 10x multiplied by goal of where you want to be. And once you reach there, multiply it again by 10. Because it's a definitive number. The 1 representing where you're at and the 0 representing 10 times more, essentially. And it's amazing because I had a goal of having 1,000 individuals on my, or followers as they're called, on Instagram. I had read his book. I said, okay, well, I want to multiply it by 10. So I thought, I want to go from, I was thinking like, I want to go from like 100 to 1,000. And then in the process, I didn't get, in 100 days, I did not get 1,000. But you know what? I got about 800. And it was great. And then my next 100 days, I try to blow through that 1,000 goal. My 10X goal was still there, right? But because I was already at 800, okay, you could either keep that initial goal or you could 10X it again. So what I did was I said, you know what, I'm going to blow through 1,000. I didn't get 1,000. I got 800. So I multiplied by that by 10 100 days later. So I failed my first goal of 1,000, but I still did great because I had 800. And then I worked hard to very diligently. And I, at that 100-day mark, when I had 100, I multiplied it by 10. Okay. And I wanted 8,000. I didn't get 8,000. Okay. But I got about 7,000. And I kept doing that, multiplying it by 10, multiplying it by 10. And the goal is to actually blow through that goal. But remember, if you fail, you're still so much higher because you aim so much higher. And that's what 10X is all about. 10X is all about essentially multiplying your goals by 10. Okay. And if you blow through it, then great. Because you realize you're going to be taking such big steps up that staircase. You're not just going to reach the top of that staircase. You're going to be looking for more stairs to climb, higher, bigger goals. And that's what you should be doing. I have goals of doing comedy in a stadium. Okay. I have goals of having sold out crowds and traveling These are all not far off. It's where I'm currently at, and then I'm just multiplying it because I can do it. If I'm doing it now, okay, and I'm taking my current success and I just multiply it by 10, I'm not doing anything different as far as my goals, but my progress, that's where I'm aiming to be. Okay. So that is 10X. In my personal opinion, you should get the Audible called the 10X Mentor, which is only available on Audible. So you can hear the audio of it. It's called the 10X Mentor, but also buy the book to be able to write stuff in it. Now, in the audio version, Grant actually, he's a lot more vocal. I mean, of course, it's audio, right? But there's a lot of stuff that's in the 10X Mentor that is not in the actual book, right? So one more thing is, as far as marketing goes, it's actually like a two-parter. All right. I think that you need to write everything down. And there's a very successful, very easy book called the One-Page Marketing Plan. Okay. And it essentially tells you how to take all of the craziness of a strategy that you wanted to employ. Okay. And how to make it as simple as possible. And it has a website and a PDF that you can fill out, and you can make your entire one-page marketing plan from how to get customers and make more money and stand out from the crowd. It's by an author, Alan Dibb. Okay. That is going to help you out as far as your strategy goes. And if you wanted to simplify that and condense it into a much easier read, you should buy these. And these are all important. I'm not just saying that. These are actually like you're building a foundation. All right. And I'm saying it in this order on purpose. Okay. There is two things that you need as far as once you have your strategy and you start to implement it. On the business aspect, you're going to want to be able to make a $100 million offer. So basically, that is a way of saying that no matter what you pitch somebody, going back to that 10X, that sell, it has to be such good of an offer that they can't refuse it. So Grant Cardone is not exactly saying what to say, but he's giving the concept of why. All right. There's a very successful, very, very wealthy guy, Alex Hormozy. I'm probably saying that wrong, but he has 2 books, which I think after the one-page marketing plan, you should definitely look into, called $100 million Offers. And it's essentially telling you not just what, but now more technically how, okay, and why you should be, how you pretty much polish up your offers. So when you're selling your ideas to somebody, if you are a basketball player or a musician or anything like that, that you will be able to condense them. Okay. And of course, it's your job to over deliver and to follow through. Now, after any comedy show or anywhere else in life, you want to continue to be networking. And this is all on the premise that you don't have a team of people doing it, right? But even if you have a team of people, you think the Rock networks for himself? Yeah, but he also has a team of people. Okay? So everything that I'm saying, it applies not just to your team, but if you don't have one, you need to know how to do this to yourself. You don't think Michael Jordan knew how to make a deal? Of course he did. That's crazy. You know what I mean? So wherever you go, you're going to want some lead information. You're going to want to know who's the guy that I talked to. Again, coming full swing, coming full circle. That's something that Grant Cardone talks about in his 10X book. Right? But another book by Alex Hormozy, right? Hormozi, Hormozy, whatever. His first one is called $100 Million Offers. The next one is $100 Million Leads. Okay. And that is essentially figuring out that next individual that you call, that it's going to be a great contact. You can work a lot smarter and a lot less hard if you keep like getting connected to the next individual that is going to take you to that next step, that next level. And people like helping people, especially if you're on your way up, because they start thinking, not in a selfish way, how can this help me out? And if you help somebody out, they're going to remember you, right? And then you're going to want to help them out. And then you just do collaborations and so forth and so on. Now, I'm at about 20 minutes now. I don't ever do podcasts this long, but I thought it was very relevant to talk about this, right? So there's only about 2 more books that I'm going to recommend. And again, these are all purposeful for all walks of life, okay? And for me, especially for comedy, right? When you perform, and maybe as far as the order of everything that I'm saying, maybe this wasn't the best order, but I believe it was. Minus this one book. I don't really know where to put this next book on the list, but you need it. You need it, okay? It's called With Winning in Mind, okay? And it's by a great author, okay? Lanny Basham. And essentially, it is about this guy who, on all scales of life, it's not that he was a loser, okay? But he was really just an unknown, right? He was an unknown. And he decided that he wanted to be, he wanted to start competing. He wasn't the fastest, not the most athletic, but he wanted to be good at something. So he took up marksmanship, how to shoot a rifle, right? And no matter how good he did, he kept on becoming in second place over and over again. And he started interviewing different individuals and figuring out what tactics and techniques they used. And he made it into a formula. He made it into a system. And that system is the exact system that I use every single time I go on stage. You can use this system for basketball, for creative writing, for comedy, but essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, he shows the different phases of learning information, which is the initial starting process, right? The rehearsing phase, which is after you've like learned or memorized, you've been training something a lot, not just how to do something, the learning phase, okay, but you start implementing it into practices. And lastly, the execution phase, which is you're live. This is the one that counts. This is real. Let's go. And he breaks it down to a systematic, very, very simple way. And it is a game changer if you're a performer on any level. If you want to give a speech, if you're doing comedy, if you're a professional athlete. And that last execution phase, he actually implores that you use some sort of an anchor, a physical anchor. So for me, it's when I grab the microphone. Okay. If you grab a microphone, even in your house, as an example, hypothetically, or you ever see a guy, how he shoots a, like a 2-point free throw, right? In basketball, they have like a small little, some might call it a ritual, right? But you have an actual like a pre-routine that you do, okay, to get you zoned in. And you should do that not after you learn, but during your practices. So on the live day, the day of execution that you're actually performing whatever you're doing, okay, that physical cue puts you back to practice mode. And at that point, you're fully relaxed. All right. And essentially what he's doing is he's making sure that you drill something in the practice phase, not the learning phase when you're figuring out how to do something, right? But the practice phase, you're drilling it essentially to your subconscious. And once it's to your subconscious and you bring it to the live performance, it's where it needs to be. So you can be reactive, be in the moment, but also you're bringing yourself back to that practice mode by repeating that physical anchor point and grabbing that microphone or spinning that ball or bouncing it twice or whatever it is that you do. Game, and then you're on autopilot, which is, you've heard of the phrase flow state. That's how you reach the flow state. He wanted to make a book to figure out how you can do that, and he did it. It's absolutely brilliant. There's one last thing that I have to do where I have to swing back just for a minute and talk about 10X. And Grant Cardone's very great book of the 10x rule method, etc. He talks about getting known. The reality is that you could do 10,000 small things that don't ever accumulate to anything as far as being a world-class entertainer, a world-class athlete. You have to have, you essentially have to get known by others because you may be the best or better than somebody else at a certain thing, such as comedy, right? It could be even shooting a basketball. But if nobody knows, coming back to my original point, success is not a vacuum. If nobody knows, all right, then you're doing no service to yourself. If anything, you're doing a disservice to yourself. So imagine a world where Coca-Cola, which in my opinion is exponentially better than Pepsi, but if nobody knew it, no one is ever going to be interested in the better product, the Coca-Cola in this instance, if they don't know about it. And even if they've heard of it, if not enough individuals are talking about it. So 10X does a huge part and great job in over delivering the concept and principle that you have to get known. Because for you to be world's best or to have this, that, and the other, okay, the message has to get out to the right individuals. Everybody has to start saying it. Everyone is your best reference, right? Think about it like this. There's no such thing as a Cybertruck commercial. Doesn't exist. You won't ever see a Cybertruck commercial, right? It's all self-advertising, right? And you want to be able to say a joke that someone wants to repeat. You want to be able to have a car that's not just that you love, but others are going to want to drive. You're going to want to be able to make your free throws and be consistent that somebody has a nickname for you. You know what I mean? And he really brings that point across. And he has a lot of different strategies as far as how you do it. And even as far as business goes, if you call somebody up, it's not the first call that's going to catch somebody's attention, but you want to follow up and you continue. He even has another book having to do with following up, and that's all it's about. It's still a great read, but essentially, that's something that I'm pretty sure it's in 10X, but everything that I'm saying right now, it's the only way that you can be successful. And I really do mean that, because if it's not you that's implementing it, something else has to implement it. Now, I said 2 books just a few minutes ago that I said I wanted to talk about. One of them was With Winning in Mind. And the other one, it's very simple, but it's very powerful, okay? It's also by Stephen Pressfield, called Do the Work. And that essentially is just swinging the bat and following through. One of the easiest, best phrases, and another thing that I live by, essentially, is making a plan and follow it. You need to make a plan. And this is my plan that I've done. And it took a lot of reading and a lot of understanding, and more important, a lot of comprehending to understand, not just to be different, but why should people listen to me? I want to build a story brand. I need to learn my own marketing because I don't have a team of individuals. I'm not The Rock. I'm not famous right now. Okay. But the implementation of all of these is something that you have to do on a daily basis. But how are you going to do it if you don't really have a clue what the steps are? Guess what? These are the steps. These are the steps to be successful. And why? Because again, success is not a vacuum. Others are going to help you. These things may be implemented indirectly or directly, or a combination of both. It could be just you that does it or somebody else. It could be both of you. Okay? But it will not be none of you. You need to market yourself. You need to make a checklist, and every single day be trying to knock out all of these. And then at some point, if you can delegate any responsibility to somebody else, great. It gives you more time to do something else. This was a huge refresher and something that I was actually going to talk about in a podcast with those guys that I said earlier, right? the HND Comedy Podcast with Hoffa and David. But I was thinking about it so much and I really wanted to discuss it. So I just made this into like a master podcast. Not just if anybody wants to listen to it, I can tell them where to go. But now we have less to talk about, which is actually in a weird way good for the next time I go on their show. Because if they listen to this, and I'm going to send it to them, the idea is 100 days from when we first met. We first did that podcast earlier, to see how far they've come, and not just that, me as well. You know, I have a specific date for when my next 100-day mark is, but it'd be interesting to see what they've managed, what they've learned, what they've implemented, and not just that. The most important part: 10x your results. Where are you? I'm going to leave on this one last note. I always say that if you're just 1% better every single day, in 100 days, you'll be a better version of yourself. That essentially is the 10x rule. Okay? Be a better version, kick ass, and be better. And if possible, be 10 times better every single day. If you're more than 1% in 100 days, you'll be better than a better version of yourself. But at the very least, you need to be 1% better. I'm Benja Well Done. Check out these books. This is important, not just to me to get this out, making another imprint on my memory, which is something that I learned from Lanny Basham, from his amazing, great book, With Winning in Mind. When you do things that you out loud, you can write them down. You can say them out loud the way I do in a podcast form, but you need to make, after a good day, you need to make these imprints so that you make a second memory after the fact. In addition to also doing something, which is what I learned in the Army, an after action report, which is finding good things and bad things. It's easy if you didn't have a good performance to write down the bad, okay? But you need to also, it's hard to find out what good there was. And the flip side of that, if you had a great performance for basketball or whatever, in the Army, they always say after any mission or task that you're doing, you want to do an after action report, write down a few good things and a few bad things. But what if you had a great day? What if you're a professional MMA fighter and you choked a guy out and you won, and you beat him, right? Even if it was on points, whatever, I don't want to digress. And you beat him in the first 30 seconds, right? How do you find bad in that performance? That's where you become a professional. It's finding the ability of finding bad when you do extremely good, okay? Because when the good is very obvious, and to find good when you did potentially extremely bad. You implement these things. You just write them down. Right now, essentially, on an international scale, I'm a nobody. However, in reality, I'm a somebody. I'm a world-class professional comedian, and the world doesn't know it. So it's my responsibility to 10x my life so that you're aware of it. The stuff that I'm doing, the implementation, the jokes, it's not going to be different, but the world needs to know it. And it's my responsibility to tell them, because I don't have a team. But if I did, they would help me. There's no reason that you can't reach out to companies, to colleges, and call them and say, I want to talk to the athletics director. Who are you? I'm so-and-so. Don't let that recruiter come to you. Go to them. Let them know why you need to be on that team. Just like when I call a club or I call a guy, he might say no. I might not build that story brand. I might not convince him, but I'm going to call him back. I'm going to follow up, because if there's 10 guys and girls or whatever calling, how many do you think are doing a second call after they've had a successful call one time? Probably less. How about this? How about a second follow-up phone call? Even less than that. You should be the only name, essentially, right, in this guy's head for that comedy job, for that acting role, for that scholarship, etc. And all these books that I talked about help to implement that. And I made it into like a small little list that I tried to implement and do every single day, about like 10 different things to just lightly cover it. couple keywords and stuff like that. But write down the good, if there was basically any, not any, in a bad performance. Write down the bad, if there basically wasn't any in a good performance. Okay. And vice versa. Write the bad and the good, whatever, for each, regardless of what it is. Be a professional and get after it. I'm Benja Well Done. This is my method. Check me out. Peace.